Welcome to my expat stories. This one's different, it's quiet, it's honest, and it's going to make you think about what really matters. This comes from a man who almost didn't write in because the shame was too heavy to carry alone. This is Dale, 64 years old, retired electrician from Kentucky. He went to Medellín looking for peace and found something he thought was love. He built a house, he trusted someone, and he lost almost everything. But unlike most stories, this one has an ending that matters. Subscribe and hit that like button. Dale's honesty about what happened will stay with you long after this story ends. Here's his letter. I don't really know how to start this. I've typed it out twice and deleted it because it feels like standing naked in front of strangers. I'm not proud of what happened to me in Colombia, and I'm even less proud that I let it get as far as it did. But I've been watching these stories, and I keep thinking maybe if one man reads this and slows down, it's worth the embarrassment. I'm 64 years old. I worked as an electrician most of my life, residential and commercial. I'm not dumb, but I'm not clever either, especially with money. I've been divorced once. It wasn't dramatic, we just drifted apart over the years. After I retired, the house felt too quiet, too still. I didn't want to die in front of a TV, wondering where the years went. I'm back in Kentucky now, living with my daughter and her husband. I sleep in their guest room, help where I can, try not to get in the way. I'm grateful more than I can put into words. Every night before I go to bed, I thank God for giving me kids who didn't shut the door when I showed up with nothing but a duffel bag and a lot of shame. 2 years ago, I was sitting on a bench in Medellín, under an awning trying to stay dry while it rained, counting coins to see if I could afford something to eat. That's the part I still have trouble admitting out loud. I went from thinking I was starting a new life to wondering how I'd messed up so badly. I didn't go to Colombia chasing trouble. Didn't think I was special. I just thought I'd earned a little peace after 40 years of work. Looking back now, I can see how many warnings I ignored and how many dumb choices I explained away because I wanted something to work. This isn't a revenge story. It's not meant to scare anyone. It's just the truth. As uncomfortable as that is to write. I wasn't one of those guys with a big pension or fat investment account. Truth is, I'd never been good with money. I lived like most working folks, paycheck to paycheck, fixing one thing just as another broke. By the time I hit 62, I'd managed to save around $110,000. That was it. Between selling my truck, cashing out what little I had in a 401k, and getting a few bucks from selling my tools, I had just enough to maybe buy myself a few quiet years somewhere warmer. America felt cold. Not just the weather, but everything. After the divorce, I didn't have much family around except for my daughter, Sarah. We hadn't talked much in years. My fault mostly. I've been through some health stuff, blood pressure, knees giving out, the usual wear from decades on ladders and crawling through attics. And I started thinking if I've got any good years left, I don't want to spend them in a recliner watching reruns. Colombia started popping up everywhere. YouTube videos, Facebook groups, blog posts from guys saying how they were living on $1,200 a month. It all sounded too good to be true. A guy I used to work with had moved to Medellín and kept posting pictures of mountains and cheap food and smiling people. He messaged me once and said, "Dale, if you're thinking about it, just do it. You'll never regret it." He was half right. I picked Medellín because it looked modern, safe, not some tiny village. I figured if I was going to jump, I wanted to do it where there were hospitals and English speakers and taxis. I booked a one-way flight, packed 2 bags, left a note for the neighbour to watch the house, and flew out in March with all my savings and a brain full of hope. Landing in Medellín felt like stepping into another world. The air was warm but not heavy. Mountains on every side. The city looked clean, modern. People smiled at me for no reason. It felt like I'd stepped into a second life. A do-over. I rented a small apartment in El Poblado. Nothing fancy, but the air conditioning worked and the landlord spoke some English. For the first few weeks, I just wandered. Ate empanadas for breakfast, took walks in the parks, watched life move around me. I didn't drink much, didn't party. I wasn't chasing anything, at least not yet. I met Carolina on a Thursday night. I wasn't even supposed to be out. I'd spent the day walking around Parque Lleras. My feet were tired. I ducked into this little restaurant with outdoor seating, not a bar exactly. More like a family place with tables and music playing. Carolina was working there, 22 years old, from a small town outside Medellín. She spoke better English than most, didn't put on a fake voice. She asked where I was from, how long I'd been in Colombia. She wasn't pushy. In fact, she almost seemed shy. I ordered a beer and some food. She brought it out and we talked for a bit. She asked about my life, my work, my family. She wasn't just going through the motions. Or maybe she was and I was too lonely to see it. But I'll be honest, I liked the attention. After years of being invisible, it felt good to have someone look at me like I mattered. When I got up to leave, she walked me to the door and thanked me for being nice. I don't know why I said it, but I turned and asked, "Would you want to have coffee sometime?" She looked surprised. Then she smiled. Soft, a little unsure, and said, "Maybe if you come back tomorrow." I did. For the next week, I went back every night. We'd sit at the same table after her shift. Sometimes she was tired, sometimes distracted. But when she looked at me, I felt like someone again. We didn't talk about money. Not directly. But one night she mentioned that working at the restaurant didn't pay much, that she sent money home to her mother every month, that she wished she could study or do something different. That's when I made the offer. I told her I could help, give her some money every month, not for anything specific, just so she wouldn't have to work so much. I said it like I was doing her a favour, like it was charity. Truth is, I was paying for her time, and I think deep down we both knew it. She said yes, just like that. And 2 weeks later, Carolina moved into my apartment. That was the beginning. And without knowing it yet, the beginning of the end. The first few weeks living with Carolina felt like something out of a dream. She brought this strange kind of peace to the apartment. She cleaned without being asked, made coffee in the morning, cooked simple meals that actually tasted good once I got used to them. She called me Dale, not baby, not honey, just Dale. And she said it softly, like she meant it. I'd never lived with a woman that young, or hell any woman since my ex-wife left 20 years ago. Carolina was different. She wasn't loud, she wasn't dramatic, she didn't nag. She didn't even ask for much. At least not at first. I took her to the mall a few times, bought her a phone, a necklace. She didn't beg for them. She'd just look at something, then glance away like she was trying to be polite. That look worked better than begging ever could. But it wasn't all fake. Some of it, I'm sure, was real. There were moments when she'd fall asleep on the couch while we watched movies. She'd tell me she felt safe with me, that I was calm, not like young Colombian guys who just wanted to party. One afternoon we were eating lunch and she said, "You are like my safe home." That line stuck with me. Later that week she brought up the idea of building something together. Not a business, but a house. A place for us. Something small, she said. Her mother had land just outside Medellín, near a town called Guatapé. It was quiet, peaceful. A place to settle down, she said. We're not young forever. Better build something while we still can. I nodded because that's what I'd always wanted. A little house with someone who cared if I came home at night. The next morning she showed me a rough plan drawn on paper. 2 bedrooms, open kitchen, maybe a garden. I asked how much it would cost. She said not too much. We build simple, you and me. I didn't press for details. I didn't ask about the land title or permits. I just imagined sitting on a porch with her, drinking coffee, listening to birds instead of traffic. That's how it happens. Not all at once. Just a little nudge here, a soft smile there, until suddenly you're standing in a dirt lot with your wallet open and your common sense packed away somewhere you forgot to check. At first it was just talk, then one afternoon she showed up with a piece of paper, numbers written in Spanish. She said it was a quote from a builder her uncle knew. She translated as best she could, telling me we could build something simple on her mother's land for about 40 million pesos. Around $12,000. I still had close to 100,000 in savings. I figured I could swing it and still have plenty left. I told myself this was responsible. Logical even. Of course, that number didn't stay where it was for long. Every couple weeks there was another issue. The roof needed stronger materials. Wiring had to be upgraded. Prices for cement had jumped. Someone needed to be paid early to keep things moving. Carolina always looked concerned when she brought it up, like she hated having to ask. I didn't want to be the man who crushed her dream, so I kept paying. A little here, a little there. I wired money from my US account, withdrew bundles of pesos at a time. Kept telling myself it would all be worth it once we were settled. When I finally went out to the site, I remember standing there, watching guys pour concrete under the afternoon sun. The frame of the house was halfway done. Just walls with no roof yet. And I remember thinking, this doesn't look like $12,000. But I didn't say anything. I didn't want to ruin the moment. Carolina was smiling, pointing at where our bed would go. Her mother waved from the small house next door. I smiled too. like a man who believed every bit of it. The house eventually came together. 1 floor, 2 small bedrooms, open kitchen, bathroom, a little porch where she'd planted flowers. It wasn't luxury, but it looked all right. By the end of it all, once the furniture was bought and Carolina had her new motorcycle parked out front, I'd put in over $70,000. That was most of what I had left. And Carolina said the land was in her mother's name anyway. No worry, she told me. This your home too. I never leave. And I wanted to believe her so badly. I did. Things were good for a while. Or maybe I just wanted them to be. Once we moved into the house, Carolina seemed happy, at least on the surface. She decorated with little things from the local market, hung pictures on the walls, started planting herbs in pots out back. I'd sit on the porch in the evenings with a cold drink, listening to dogs bark in the distance, watching her water the plants. It felt quiet, peaceful, like maybe I hadn't screwed it all up. But after a couple months, things started to shift. Carolina became harder to reach. She was on her phone, constantly, texting in Spanish and hiding the screen when I walked by. She started going into Medellín more, saying she needed to help her sister or run errands. She'd leave in the morning wearing makeup and nice clothes. Come back after dark saying traffic was bad. The first few times I believed her. I didn't want to be one of those bitter expats who assumes every Colombian woman is playing games. I gave her space. I trusted her. But something in my gut told me the rhythm had changed. She stopped sitting with me on the porch. She didn't ask if I'd eaten. She barely looked up from her screen. I asked her one night gently if everything was okay. She sighed hard and said, "You always ask so many questions. I'm not your child." That stung more than I let on. Then came the coldness, not yelling. Just silence followed by sharp little jabs. I'd ask if she wanted to go somewhere and she'd say, "Why you follow me everywhere? You don't trust me." I told her I was just trying to spend time together. She rolled her eyes and went back to her phone. I remember one evening I cooked her favourite meal, bought everything from the market, set the table, tried to make it nice. She walked in, saw the table, and said, "Why you act like this?" Then she sat down and scrolled through her phone while I ate in. Silence. I should have said something. I should have pushed harder. But I was scared. Not of her, but of losing what I'd built. That house wasn't just walls and concrete. It was everything I had left. My savings, my pride, my shot at a second life. I was too invested to walk away, and too ashamed to admit to anyone back home that things were slipping. When I checked my bank account around that time, I felt my stomach drop. Between the house and Carolina's expenses and the general cost of staying afloat, I had less than $25,000 left. No steady income, no visa plan, no ownership of the land I was living on, and no idea what I'd do if she left. It happened on a Monday. I'd gone into Medellín to pick up a refill on my blood pressure meds. The pharmacy was busy and it took longer than I expected. By the time I got back, the gate to the house was wide open. At first I thought maybe Carolina forgot to close it, or her mother had come by. But when I stepped, inside the silence hit me like a punch. Her shoes were gone. So were her clothes. The shelves where she kept her things. All empty. Even the potted herbs out back were knocked over like someone left in a hurry and didn't care about cleaning up. I called her once. No answer. Called again, straight to voicemail. I opened WhatsApp and saw I'd been blocked. Just like that. I stood there in the middle of that house, the one I'd paid for. Our house, the one she said we'd grow old in, and I felt like a ghost. I didn't even sit down, I just wandered from room to room like I was looking for a clue. There was nothing. No note, no warning. Just empty space where her life used to be. The next morning I went to her mother's place next door. Her mother wouldn't meet my eyes. She just shook her head and said, "Carolina not here." I asked where she went. She mumbled something about her cousin in Cali, then closed the door without another word. That night I got a message. Not a call, just a message on Facebook from Carolina. "I'm sorry. I'm not ready. You are good, man, but I need to find myself. Please don't hate me." That was it. No explanation, no mention of the house. No offer to come back and talk, just a soft little goodbye like it had all been temporary from the start. I spent the next 2 days in that house alone. I didn't eat, barely slept. I kept checking my phone like she'd message again. She didn't. Eventually I walked to the local police station. I had no plan, just desperation. I showed them the message, told them what happened. The officer laughed. "Not crime," he said. "You give her money, yes. She not steal. You just unlucky." That's the word he used. Unlucky. I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream. But instead I just nodded. He handed me back my phone, already looking past me to the next person in line. When I got back to the house, I sat on the floor for a long time. No furniture left. No food in the fridge. Just a few bags of my clothes and a mattress I didn't have the energy to move. That night, I packed a backpack, locked the front door, left the key under a flower pot. I never stepped foot in that house again. I still had little money left when I left the house. Maybe 20,000 or so. One account was local. One was back home in Kentucky. I figured I'd go back to Medellín, rent a cheap place. Lay low while I figured things out. Maybe I'd get a proper visa sorted. Maybe I'd find a way to start over. But then the transfer didn't go through. I'd tried wiring money from my US account into my Colombian one. Just $1,000 to make sure it still worked. The next morning I checked the app and nothing had arrived. I logged into my American account and there it was. A red warning banner. Account temporarily frozen due to suspicious activity. Please verify your identity. I tried logging in again. No luck. I called the bank. Got stuck in automated menus. The only way to unlock the account, they said, was to confirm my identity using the phone number on file. A number tied to my old phone, which hadn't worked since I left Kentucky. I tried explaining I was overseas. They didn't care. For 2 weeks I called, emailed, waited on hold. Every time the answer was the same. We're sorry, but without verification we can't grant access. I might as well have been dead to them. Meanwhile, my Colombian account was nearly empty. Just a couple million pesos. I had no income, no work permit, nowhere left to turn. First I found a cheap hostel near El Poblado. Shared bathroom, bunk beds. I told myself it was temporary, but the days dragged on and the money dried up faster than I thought. Between rent and food and trying to keep my visa valid, the cushion I had left vanished. Eventually I couldn't afford even the hostel. That's when I started sleeping wherever I could. Sometimes behind closed shops, sometimes under bridges. Using my backpack as a pillow, I kept clean as best I could. Washing up in mall bathrooms. Using paper towels from stores. I still had a button-down shirt that wasn't too wrinkled. I made myself look presentable. Pride's a hard thing to kill. To survive, I started offering help to anyone who'd listen. English lessons, handyman work. I stood near cafes with a cardboard sign I wrote in marker. English tutor, electrician, cheap rates. Most people ignored me. A few stopped. One Colombian kid paid me 50,000 pesos to help him with his English homework. A street vendor let me fix his broken speaker. Gave me 20,000 and a meal. I wasn't begging. Not technically, but I was damn close. Some nights I didn't eat. Some nights I pretended I wasn't hungry. The worst part wasn't the hunger or the heat or the sleeping rough. It was the shame. The knowing I'd done this to myself. That I'd traded my future for a girl who left without even looking back. I kept telling myself I'd figure it out, that I'd unlock the account, get back on my feet. But deep down I wasn't so sure. I was just trying not to disappear. I still don't know what made me check that old email account. It was something I'd set up years ago for random things. I hadn't logged into it in months. But one night after another long day of wandering, I sat down under an awning and connected to a cafe's Wi-Fi. It was past midnight. My phone was at 8%. I opened the email app and saw her name. My daughter, Sarah. Dad, are you okay? We haven't heard from you in weeks. Please message me. We're worried. If you're in trouble, just say the word. I'll get you home. I just stared at the screen. I didn't cry. Not then. I just felt this deep, slow ache rise up in my chest. Like someone had loosened a valve that had been sealed shut for months. I'd been carrying so much shame. So much stubborn pride. And there it was. Unconditional love in 12 short sentences. I thought about not replying. I really did. But my fingers moved on their own. I messed up. I'm not okay, I want to come home. She responded within the hour. Say no more, we'll figure the rest out. I'll get the ticket. 2 days later I was on a plane. She'd sent the funds through Western Union. I booked the cheapest flight with a layover in Panama. I had one backpack. No souvenirs. No proof I'd ever lived in that house. No pictures with Carolina. Just the clothes on my back and a heart full of regret. I slept most of the flight. Not because I was comfortable, but because it was the first time in months I didn't feel like I had to stay alert to survive. When I landed in Louisville, Sarah was waiting. She didn't say I told you so. She didn't ask 100 questions. She just hugged me hard and said, "Let's go home." I rode in the passenger seat of her car, staring out at the grey Kentucky sky. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a complete failure. I felt like someone who got lucky. Not lucky in Colombia. Lucky to still have family that hadn't given up on me. I've been back in Kentucky for a little over a year now. I sleep in Sarah's guest room. It's not glamorous, but it's warm and dry and quiet. And at this stage in life, that's more than enough. I help around the house, cook dinner a couple nights a week, take the kids to school when Sarah and her husband are working. I keep my head down and try not to be a burden. No one ever asks for the full story. Not right away. When I finally told Sarah, she just shook her head and said, "You're not the first dad and you won't be the last." She was right. I've talked to other guys since then. Men who went overseas looking for something they couldn't find back home. Some were chasing adventure. Some were running from heartbreak. Some, like me, just wanted to feel needed again. We all tell ourselves we're different, smarter, that our girl really means it. But the truth is, when you're lonely enough, when you're tired and a little broken inside, it's easy to mistake comfort for love. I don't hate Carolina. I think she did what she thought she had to do. I don't excuse it, and I sure don't respect it. But I understand now that I was trying to build a life with someone who was still figuring out her own. She was 22. I was 62. We weren't partners. We were a transaction. I tried to turn into a fairy tale. The house I built is probably still standing. Maybe someone else lives in it now. Maybe it's empty. I try not to think about it too much. It's just concrete and tile. What matters is, I got out before it broke me completely. Every night before I turn out the light, I thank God for Sarah and her family, for not slamming the door when I came back with nothing to show for 2 years, but a beaten-up passport and deep regrets. They didn't ask for apologies, they just gave me a place to land. I'm not sure what comes next. I don't have much left in the way of money, and I'm too old to go back to electrical work. But I've got time, and I've got people who care. And after everything I went through in Colombia, that's more than I deserve. So if you're reading this thinking about chasing a second chance overseas, I'm not here to stop you. But I will say this, if you're running from something, it'll follow you. If you think love will fix you, it won't. And if you think 100 grand makes you rich in Medellin, you're already in trouble. But if you've got family who still picks up the phone when you call, don't trade that for anything. That's the real gold. And thank goodness I still had some left. That's Dale's story. This is my expat stories. Another one coming soon.